welcome and thank you for inviting me into your home or wherever you may be to be a part of your group discussion. And this week we're looking at, so in Believe, the Believe series, we're looking at who am I becoming? And this week we're looking at the fruits of the Spirit, and specifically self-control. And so I want to start with our key verse this week, which is our key verse is Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 13. And Paul writes, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age, while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ." So what is this word self-control? So this word self-control boils down to our ability, the ability to control oneself and emotions. For me, I think about self-control and I think about growing up. So many of you know my story. For those of you who don't, I grew up a non-believer, and I didn't become a follower of Jesus until I was in my 30s. But growing up, I did not have self-control. I had a wicked temper. I would fight at the drop of a hat. I mean, I didn't believe in conversation. If it looked like the potential was there for there to be physical violence, which my life was physical violence, I would just jump in and get in a fight. I had no self-control over myself physically or my emotions. And I would just go into fits of rage. I would see black. And I believed that I had no control over that was just kind of part of my makeup, my wiring, and who I was. Now, there are key factors that played into that, which I had to get healing for. And I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But so those were contributing factors. But our key question is, how does God free me from addictions and sinful habits? So how does God free me from addictions and sinful habits? Anger is a sinful habit, okay? I would word this differently, but we're in the Believe series, and so that's what we're dealing with. So you can fill in free in the blank there. So I want you to notice a key question. It's not how do I free myself from these addictions and sinful habits, but how does God free me from addictions and sinful habits? And these addictions and sinful habits, they can be things like food, right? Overeating. They could be things like shopping, like you just shop too much. I've had seasons of that in my life. They can be anger. They can be lust. They could be pornography, sexual sins. It can even be gossip. Okay, so all of these things and many more, I don't need to go through a list of them. Each of us has them and knows them. And so we have these sinful habits and behaviors that a lot of times we try to get out of in our own power. And see that the secret comes from our key idea. And our key idea is this, is I have the power through Christ to control myself. I have the power through Christ to control myself. So I have the power through me to control myself, which is most of us think that we do. And we try to do things on our own and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And we all want to do things on our own. And in the recovery community, we have this saying where we say addicts are really good at being really good for 90 days. See, it seems like, when you want to get free from something, you'll put yourself in a circle of people, and you'll begin to get better, and you'll cut out whatever it is. And then at some point in that process, you believe that you can do it on your own. And you believe that you can handle it, or I can do it just this once. And it typically is 90 days. And so addicts are really good at being really good for 90 days, and then they drop back into the cycle of addiction. They think they can handle it on their own. And we're not meant to do things on our own, and we don't have the power to do things on our own. And our key application is self-control is helped along through loving accountability. Okay, so I'm going to be frank with you right now. I hate that word. I think it's overused in the church, and having an accountability partner or accountability buddy. See, the thing with accountability is this: Accountability is only as good as you are willing to be 100% honest with another person. And then what? Then what happens? What happens the next time and the next time and the next time? And at some point, you just feel defeated and you stop telling the whole truth. And what does your accountability buddy do? They're there for you, great. But what do they do, and what do they feel like they should do? So should they make you feel bad? This is something. So what I'm not saying is I don't believe that you shouldn't be in community. Let me explain that. So I believe that we need to have people, one or two in our lives, who know us and love us, who we are able to go the extra 10% with, tell the truth about. And I believe that those people should be in our lives, and they should be calling out God's glory in us, our glory story, who God created us to be. That those people should be in our lives, reminding us of who we are. And I think at one point I had maybe used this story in a message, but I want to share it again here with you guys. So there's this legend, and it's of a tribe, and this tribe, it's the tribe and their song. This went around on Facebook a number of years ago. It kind of was posed off to be a real story, but it's not a real story. It's a legend, okay? And so basically, the story goes like this. When a mother wants to have a child, she would go outside of the village and she would sit under the tree and she would ask God for a song. And she would sit there until she got the song. And then God would teach her that song. Then she would go and she would teach the song to her husband. And as her and her husband made love, they would sing that song as they made love, bringing into creation this child. Then she would teach, after she got pregnant, she would teach that song to the people the midwives that would bring the child forth. And as the child was being born and being drawn forth, the midwives would sing that song over that child. And then they would teach the song to the village, to the tribe. And so everybody had their own song. And the village would sing that song to remind that child, that person, of who they are, of who God created them to be. See, it's God's song for each of them. And if that child got in trouble, they wouldn't persecute or punish the child. I mean, obviously there's repercussions, but they would sing that song to remind that child of who they are. When that child maybe grew up and got into more trouble or got into addiction, they would sing the song to remind the child of who they are. If the child went away, they would sing the song and it would echo through the valleys in the land to remind the person of who they are and who they were created to be. So that's an abbreviated version of that legend. And what I like about that so much is I believe that's what God does with us, is he gives each of us a song, gives each of us an identity. And we need to have people in our lives who remind us of that, who remind us of the glory story, the glory story that God has put within us. And so when I think of self-control, it's through the power of Christ. It's through the power of being in relationship with Jesus. See, you become like those you hang out with. If you want something to change, so change isn't change unless something changes. Do you get that? I'll say that again. So change isn't change unless something changes. You have to change something. And a lot of times we have to change our playground. We have to change the people that we hang out with. If we want to get sober, let's say, well, it doesn't make sense for me to hang out with all my buddies who are hanging out every night and drinking. I'm going to become like who I hang out with. I'm going to be tempted beyond my ability to control myself. So if I want something to change, I want to hang out with Jesus, and I want to hang out with other people who are pursuing a relationship with Jesus. Now, if you hang out with me, I like to say, if you're following me, I'm following Jesus. So if you don't want to know who Jesus is, don't follow me. And if for those of you who know me, I'm imperfect. And so I'm in no way perfect and no way do things perfectly. But I'm pursuing Jesus, and I'm becoming more and more like him every day. And so if you want to become more and more like Jesus, if you want to get free from these habits and behaviors, if you want to experience self-control, then hang out with Jesus and hang out with the people that are hanging out and pursuing a relationship with him, which is what you're doing in your groups. And I'm so happy for that. My hope and prayer is that you would find one or two who would be willing to go the extra 10, you'd be willing to go the extra 10% with. I would call them brothers. It might be sisters for you, but people who you're willing to go the extra 10% with, and that they would remind you of God's glory that they see within you, and that you would be a beacon and a shining light, and that you would experience freedom and self-control. And if you didn't listen to last week's message, that you would experience peace. And I believe that all of these would happen through that. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation tonight as you go through it. This has actually been one of my favorite chapters through the Believe series so far. God bless you. Go in peace.